Thank you everyone for the welcome, and thanks Mike and PRC Magazine for inviting me here today. The bio you read just took care of the first several minutes of my presentation. I'll just give you kind of a brief overview of what I'm intending to talk about today. The profile, which Mike already ran through, but I'll give you kind of imagery behind it. And some of our project history that I think defines us really not purely as hotel designers. We have a broader background. And some of the recent project initiatives that we've been undertaking. Some of you that have the reddish colored PRC magazine in their labs actually has the social media initiative project that we undertook back in January called Dragon's Link. So you can see that in that issue of PRC. And the latest thing that I want to talk about at the end of the presentation is a series of eco resorts that we're developing in Sri Lanka using a different business model as a design firm. So as the bio suggested, we're really more at the front end of the process. We're master plan architects, so the hotel is often just one component of a much larger project that we're involved in that would also have residential, retail, office space, those sorts of other uses attached to it. That's me probably at age 2. I won't cover the next 25 years between that and when I started at Jerde. That'd be a bit too much. But as Mike said, our background really is. Can everyone hear me? In the back, is it okay? Okay, all right, good. So when I started at Jerde, the practice was really sort of focused around entertainment-based retail. So we were doing a lot of work for Universal Studios. I was working in both the city block in Orlando and the original one in Los Angeles. And as Mike mentioned in my bio, I was one of the lead designers of the Bellagio when I was at Jerde, which turned out to be probably the most recognizable project whenever I go around China, that everyone that either has been to the Bellagio or they want to go. The Dentsu Headquarters, which was with Jean Nouvel, that was purely a retail podium with an office tower above. And then with O&A, we did a fashion show. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, it's a 2 million square foot retail center across from the Wynn and the Treasure Island. And then we did a lot of work with 3 different NBA teams, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Phoenix Suns, and the Dallas Mavericks. These were really more mixed-use entertainment-related projects. At the end of that practice, I actually left it to go plan a large project in Baja Mar, Cable Beach, near Nassau, Bahamas. And this project actually has been realized on a much smaller scale recently. It was a joint venture between Starwood Hotels and Harrah's. So with my own venture with MCO, the project at the FAR 2006 is a 3 podium of bars, restaurants, and retails and office towers in Beijing that's probably famous because it has the first Hooters in China located in it. This was really when our practice started to switch purely to hotels. In about 2008, we opened a small boutique hotel on Yellow Bay called the Aegean. It was only 115 rooms, so it was quite a small project for that location on Yellow Bay in Sanya. But that really sort of launched us into a lot of work in that region. The project was recognized and known by a lot of people. I'll highlight a couple of projects here. This is another project in Clearwater Bay in Hainan called Aloha. It's a 440,000 square meter mixed-use development that has multiple hotels, service department towers, and villas. But the core of it is an entertainment district that basically kind of ties all of these pieces together. We did an urban mixed-use tower, which is basically a podium of retail with a cinema on top of it, and a 100-meter tower that had residences and a boutique hotel at the top. And this interesting thing about this project, we tore down the only cinema in the city of Sanya to do this proposal, and so we replaced it with a modern cinema. we also had a gesture to the local culture with this scrim material on the facade, which was intended to reduce the solar heat gain of the glass. This project, the Wyndham, just recently opened on Sanya Bay. This is also, I would really call it a mixed-use project because we managed to get 10,000 square meters of retail tucked into a project that has a residential tower and a hotel sitting on top of it. And one of the things we tried doing, we started designing this project nearly 7 or so years ago. The trend at the time in Hainan was still lots of very sort of Thai-style architecture, and we made a conscious decision to try and pick a reference from a place that was quite foreign and try to adapt it to the local marketplace. And so this was really kind of looking back at like the Morris Lapidus hotels of Miami Beach in the 1950s. So that even with kind of the big curving gesture, it's sort of a homage to the Fontainebleau. Lighting is often a really big part of all of our work as well, that we like to imagine the building at different times of the day with different characters. This last project that I'll highlight, I think, is maybe more about future trends in the hotel design in this market. That this is the market in Sanya seems to be maturing to the point now where they're looking towards other types of developments rather than just purely resort-driven short stay sorts of properties. So there's a district, a high-tech district, that's being developed north of the city that has an actual high-tech campus, and they're attracting like mobile phone companies and software developers to basically open branches of their companies here. And so it's really intended to be more of a real residential project. One of the other challenges that we're always working against in terms of planning in China is how do you integrate uses while still integrate the uses but still sort of satisfy the developer's desire to compartmentalize all the different user groups on the site that keep private spaces very, very private and public spaces kind of off to the edge of the property. So in this case, you can see in the site plan, this serpentine space running through the middle is really, it's an urban planning move in the sense that we're trying to collect people from the adjacent properties and bring them through the middle of the site to experience this sort of outdoor retail garden passage that you see in the upper left. That's slightly below grade, so it's separated vertically from all of the amenity spaces. So you get the sense of kind of being in the middle of the place, surrounded by all of these towers, but the private spaces for the hotels and the residences don't have to directly interact with the public. And then we also provided a direct access to the beach through the center of the project. The image on the left, this is probably another thing that's unique to the market. Beijing and Shanghai have a lot of loft-style apartments that are happening at this point, but in Hainan, they've just passed some new regulatory controls that allow higher floor-to-floor heights than what was typical before. And so we have 4.9 meters floor-to-floor in all of the loft towers. And that allowed the developer to slip an interstitial floor into each of the units, which would add about 30% of the 30% additional floor area for all of the buyers of these loft apartments, and not have an area count against the development, the above-grade development allowed on the site. And so this last project I'm showing is totally unrelated to hospitality, but I think it talks more to the idea of, as designers, how can we take initiatives to get ourselves out into the public realm and basically start a conversation in the community. So, as I mentioned, this project is in one of the issues that sees Dragon's Lake. We saw the need for traffic solutions on the south side of Hong Kong Island, and basically created a project and launched it through social media, through PRC, Art Daily, and about 15 other global design websites picked it up. A project that was really designed to connect with people at an emotional sort of level. but at the same time address some real issues of public safety and transport. And if people here are familiar in the audience with the Titan Reservoir, it's about to turn 100 years old next February. And so the project is also meant to be a sort of a recognition of this old piece of historic engineering in Hong Kong and what possibly the next solutions for the next 100 years might be. And basically it involves separating the vehicular traffic to solve some of the congestion problems, but it also provides a safe passageway for cyclists and for a dedicated pedestrian walkway for hikers. And if anyone's hiked the Hong Kong Trail in this area, they know that there's actually essentially a missing link here that people end up walking across the dam. It's a huge public safety issue. So here you can just see some modern people next to one another. We're creating a big public plaza at the south end for hikers and taxi drop-off, and also a new visitor center that allow people to basically get down to the water used for hosting events, wedding receptions, gallery openings. There'll be a cafe there, that sort of thing. So this brings me to what we're currently engaged in, which is working in Sri Lanka to develop a series of eco resorts. And this was really the catalyst that came out of a trip that I took in late 2015 with Save the Children. I just happened to be a donor, and they invited me to go along on this trip, and we just map for I'll take a step back for a moment from that and just give kind of a brief overview of some of the, I think, the important data points that are happening in Sri Lanka at the moment. 2009, the 30-year Civil War was concluded, and so since then the economy's been growing at a pretty rapid rate. You can see average GDP growth over the last 5 years is in the 6% range, which puts it roughly on par with China. The annual tourist visits have been going up dramatically as well now that it's a safe place to go visit. And the World Bank rates it as a stable government, good regulatory controls for businesses. The socialist government is making lots of economic reforms to modernize the markets. Long-term macroeconomic seems good. It's a really, if you haven't been there before, it's a really diverse country in terms of its topography, the people, and it has about a 2,000 to 3,000 year history with lots of ancient architecture, as well as the whole colonial period. And a bit on the infrastructure, there's actually a pretty extensive road and rail network that's existing, and they're constantly improving it. So even remote parts of the country are relatively easy to get to. There's a series of regional airports that are decent, and there are also seaplane service that get into some of the more remote parts of the country. What this trip really sort of did in terms of my thinking as a designer was we got to see sort of what these NGOs are doing on the ground in terms of helping people in a direct way in these communities. And their programs are focused mainly on like infant mortality, early childhood development, sanitation, housing, sort of really basic things. And that I started to think about, in the corporate world, there are lots of ideas already that exist about NGOs and for-profit businesses sort of partnering together to try and advance both their business and a social cause. So these are terms that people are probably familiar with: social entrepreneurship and corporate social responsibility. And a few examples that maybe people might know already from, these are again like from products, basically. Tom's, Human Zone, which is from food products, and then from the hotel world, Hilton. I liked the Blake Yakoski quote and the Paul Newman quote seem appropriate for us. I think you can find passion, profit, and meaning all at once. I think as designers, that's really what we're trying to do all the time. And the Paul Newman quote is good too. That I'd say as designers, we're often sort of stumbling through things and not necessarily sure what the rules are. And their models are quite simple. Tom's, you buy a pair of shoes, give a pair of shoes through an NGO. It's started by them. Humans, you buy some food and they donate to the after-tax profits to charity. And Hilton, they're collecting on bars of soap. When you check out of the hotel room, they basically recondition the stuff and give it to people in parts of the world where sanitation, there's like low levels of sanitation. So thinking about how does this model potentially translate itself into work that we can do as designers. And these diagrams basically sort of describe the interaction between the different parts of what we're attempting to do in Sri Lanka. So we're partnering with investors and people in Sri Lanka, and then connecting ourselves directly with NGOs and the communities where we want to develop these projects. And of course, the government is part of that sort of three-part tripod of groups, I guess you could say. Because the NGO and the government are already working together. And so we're attempting to leverage this into developing small-scale eco-resorts in different parts of the country, more remote parts of the country. And another kind of corporate term from the corporate world that I think is quite applicable here, the idea of triple bottom line, that these things, they need to be accounted on sort of three different levels, both social, environmental, and financial levels. And I think eco-resorts are basically, that's sort of the perfect explanation of what they're trying to do, balance between nature, business, and community. And this is photos from one of the areas that we're working on first in the tea estates. And again, the NGO is already embedded in the community, so there's a ready-made kind of connection to all of these places that we get by partnering with them. This is basically sort of why do this? Why does each group want to do this? I would say I'll focus primarily on the design team. I think that as designers, we end up getting sort of a halo effect from doing projects and endeavors like this. That it's essentially good marketing. If you're out doing good things, I think will basically come back to you. And it also, I discovered quickly that when you partner with the NGOs, that they're connected basically to sort of the philanthropic business leaders in a community. So you're essentially, by partnering with them, you're building another network, both in the leadership side in the communities as well as in the government, and that ultimately can lead to good work. These are some of the things that the other stakeholders are giving, basically, to be part of it. So government's giving us long-term land leases, tax incentives, regulatory support, and the NGO, in some cases, will actually partner with us, will train people in the community, and they can be part of the working in the projects. As I said, this is a very new initiative for us. So at this point, the stage we're in, I don't have drawings or images or renderings that I can show you of the projects, because we're really building the infrastructure of the team at the moment. But we have 4 initial project sites selected, and you can see 3 of them are kind of in the central district, and this is where primarily the tea is being produced in Sri Lanka, and then one site up in the north in Jaffa. So that's my story.